This is Coach Chanel. How are you guys doing? Already another episode of Monday Night Live. And in this episode, or eighth episode, what we're going to look at is the secrets to the CAPE Communication Studies exam. Well, not the exam as yet. We're actually going to look in particular at the secrets to module 3. All right, so the CAPE Comms exam is divided into 3 modules, and I will spend a separate live each night looking at each of those modules. But the module that I do normally like to start off with is not module 1, it's actually module 3. I know there are different schools that have different approaches. This is one subject where in which every single student I've ever had from different schools, from different countries, it's always a different process. It's always a different methodology in terms of how this subject is taught. I would definitely say that one of the best ways, um, the best approaches is having 2 modules happening at once. It really does make sense, and the schools that do that, if you're in a school that does that, where you're getting 2 modules being taught at the same time, whether it's by 2 separate teachers or one teacher, that's actually a very excellent approach because it really does help you tackle many aspects of the entire subject because it's 3 different modules, they're very much interrelated. However, I do normally like to start with module 3. One, because it's my favorite module, not my favorite questions, but my favorite module. And it's essentially the science of communication. And I know most of you be like, oh no, communication studies, that's just like English, right? It's a continuation of English because you're an English speaker and because you're already an English speaker with more than basic or beginner awareness of English, you should be able to then communicate at a higher level. That's where it's English. It's written in English. That's the English. Um, but it is actually a very scientific, a very okay, a pretty scientific, a pretty how do you say it? Rational. It's a very analytical type of subject. This is a subject in which I would always say students who are doing any sort of subject where you have to do quite a bit of analysis, this is a subject that you can actually do very, very well in, especially in the paper. All right. But again, I'm here to tell you about secrets to module 3. And in module 3, you are again, as I said, you are looking at the science of communication. So basically, how does communication operate? What are the elements? What are all the factors that are part of communication? You're looking at the different elements of communication in terms not just of the process, but in terms of verbal versus non-verbal communication. And because you look at those different things, that's why I love this particular section, because you do start to get into very scientific. I think this is a great module to start because it's a great module to understand how scientific this particular paper is, how very analytical. It's also a paper with a lot of application. When you're at the CAPE level, you are looking at application, looking at information and how you're going to go ahead and apply it, right, based on the question that comes in the exam. Because I can tell you, you're going to get a lot of information and not all of it's going to come. You're going to have to use your awareness of that information to then apply it to the question and produce your own result. And when we get to the point where we start to break down the type of questions that do come for this exam, it will make more sense. However, module 3, pretty fun. All right. And I would just say for now, not everyone likes every single module in Cape Comms. There's always one module you're going to absolutely dislike, and there's one module that you're going to really like. I think I can do pretty well with all the modules. I've actually had, I have academic background at tertiary level in all of the modules. So at least 2 of them for sure. Right? Module 2 is my jam. Module 2 is my jam. I really love to teach module 2. And I'll be doing a session on module 2 on sometime mid November. Okay, but in terms of module three, you're definitely doing a lot more scientific work in terms of communication. And it's going to be very fascinating. You're going to look at how communication is broken down. So, for example, what we're doing right now is part of the communication process. Um, I'm speaking, I'm the speaker, I am encoding my message. I am now speaking to you all and telling you exactly what my thoughts are, or I'm giving you information in terms of the topic of this live and what's our medium or how are you receiving this information via YouTube Live. Okay, so you're getting the information, you're getting the communication from me, you're getting my message via YouTube Live. And how do I know that you're listening or paying attention or even getting some of this knowledge is via feedback. What's feedback on social media? Likes, comments on the live, and where I can see how many persons are looking at the live, that's a type of feedback as well. So we'd be looking in this particular module at a lot of face-to-face situations. They don't always do um maybe like an online situation like this. This is actually pretty complex for this particular module, but you learn a lot about implementing social media or social media or I forgot the word that they use, guys, forgive me. There's a particular term that they like to use, so I'll just consider it social media for now. So ICT technologies, I think that's it. How you use ICT technologies in communication, right? So they do try to incorporate a lot of that. You will also learn the difference between spoken or oral communication and written communication. So you would already know I often teach English, and for students that I teach, my learners that I teach directly, I often tell them, "Hey guys, there's a difference between speaking and writing." Actually, I even tell the same thing to my Spanish students. There's a difference between speaking and writing. There literally is a difference between speaking and writing. So you'll also learn about that, and you learn about different modes of delivery. I would also say a very good secret for this particular subject on the whole um, is to download the syllabus. The syllabus did change. It changed last year. No, am I lying? Am I lying, guys? Am I lying? Let me just make sure I'm not lying. Am I lying? Okay, no, I'm not lying. Oh, boy, time is such a crazy thing. Right. So the syllabus would have changed this year for this year's exam. And I say change because to me, I didn't see a lot of changes. What I did see in the syllabus was a lot of actual information that's very useful for you for the exam. So I would recommend as a secret that you actually download the syllabus. And at the beginning of the syllabus, now guys, I know CXC syllabi is very, very, very uninteresting to read. Even the way it's presented, it's poorly designed. My opinion, poorly designed. However, you like, I'd say like the first, maybe say the first 60 pages or so, you're actually going to get a breakdown by module. So module three is actually called speaking and writing module. I personally don't ever refer to them by their actual names. I call module three the communications module because that's what it's about, communications. All right. So if you go through the information about the modules at the beginning of the syllabus, you're actually going to get a lot of information, especially technical information. The reason I mention this is because some of this information comes in the exam and you don't see it in the textbook all the time. And I could be a bit biased with my information because there's only one particular textbook that I do like for the subject, and that's the Collins let me get the name of it. Yeah, the Collins Cape Revision Guide for Communication Studies. It is an excellent guidebook because it is actually laid out in module order. So you can simply go to module three and start getting information. It has very good content information, and it has very good information in terms of you developing your analytical skills for this particular subject. So ensuring that you have enough information to then analyze, I do think that particular textbook is very helpful in that regard. So I would recommend that you continue looking at that textbook. If you can get access to it, please do utilize it. However, if you definitely don't have access to it and you don't know where to get it, I definitely recommend that you do get the syllabus and um, work on it. All right, I'm laughing at YouTube suggestions to me. Let me see. Oh, somebody said greetings from Krakow. Hi, Rafal. I hope I said your name correctly. Okay, so definitely go get the um, syllabus for this subject. And I'm not looking at you because I am actually looking at the syllabus. Go get a syllabus for the subject and definitely get the information. Um, what else can I say about this particular module? I think something about this module is it is a lot of information. This subject in the whole has a lot of information. But the thing that I normally utilize to make this module a lot more relevant, applicable, is when you start learning the communication process applied to the real world. So the very same way that I started to take that communication model, sorry, and apply it to what we're doing here. Try to do that every time you learn information. Think about regular interactions. Think about interactions with your friends, with your teachers, with your parents. Every time you have a different type of interaction, it's often within a specific context. Context is absolutely important. Context is queen, right? Context is queen. I would say feedback is king, context is queen. And when you do learn about the information in this module, you learn how important feedback is, how easy to get you'll get feedback, how even if someone doesn't reply to you, that is actually still feedback. You'll also learn about the barriers to to communication, things that impact your communication experience. So, for example, language is a barrier to communication. All right, because communication is not language. Communication is I'm sending a message and the person on the other end receives the message and understands it. But if we have a language barrier, then communication is going to be a lot harder. That's when you get miscommunication or poor communication. Not receiving a message is not necessarily no communication. Not receiving a message means that you then have to understand that the lack of a reply is also feedback, and therefore the communication process has been fully completed. You then just have to decide whether you're going to talk to that person or not, depending on the context, right? Um, I think that is actually all I have to say about this section. This is actually a section I do love. I absolutely love module 3. If it is you mm, have an interest in working with people, I'd say, developing plans, developing programs. Well, when I say programs, uh, developing campaigns and stuff like that, that's what Module 3 questions are about. All right. Most of the questions come in the form of um, your school is going to have host a bazaar or host a charity drive to raise funds for the school library. Uh, what are the best ways to communicate this? What type of appeal would you use? You're going to learn about appeals, maybe in module 3, some of depending on the textbook. What's the appeal you're going to use to get people to attend this fundraiser? Or they may tell you, hey, you've got to use your logos, which is a logical appeal, or you've got to use your pathos, which is your emotional appeals. And you create a campaign in an essay form, right? So the questions are a whole different category. Some people absolutely hate the questions. So sometimes you might like the information. And I know I said like the information. Sorry. But some of you might like the information, but the question is definitely different. That's definitely one of the things I would say you have to be careful with Cape Comms. The questions for paper 2 in particular tend to be tend to almost feel that you're not aligned with the content, but they are actually pretty much aligned. Um, you would still need to know a lot of the basic I did say basic, guys. Yes. For some of you who are actually already in Cape Com and looking at some of the information, yes, it is pretty much basic information. So some of you will definitely have to get used to looking at this basic information and not necessarily learning off everything by heart, but just starting to absorb it. And as I said, the best way to make this an easier transition is to definitely go ahead and start thinking about how do I see a communication scenario in my regular life? How do I see communication work in organizations? Uh, how do I see appeals work in terms of persuasion? Am I seeing people? Wow, these people are crazy. Sorry. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about CXC. CXC is crazy. Um, Are we seeing people trying to convince people using logical appeals? Are they using emotional appeals? Are they using their credibility? Are they using time as an appeal? Um, so yeah, and of course the difference between speaking and writing, and that information comes in handy because when you're preparing a campaign, you have to think, how should I prepare some of the work? How should I um, what sort of information should go into the campaign? What sort of information would appeal to a particular demographic? So I know some of this is sounding like a lot. It's really not that much. In fact, the questions are super, super simple, but you do need, I would say, at the very base, at its most basic, you definitely need to know about the communication process and how that works. That for me is the end all and be all. There are a lot of other information, especially in terms of nonverbal communication. You do need to know about nonverbal communication for module 2. So that's another annoying thing. A lot of the information is also sometimes intersects other modules. So you do have to learn everything, guys. There's no shortcuts. None at all. CXC is not permitting a shortcut for you guys at all. All right. So I would definitely, like I said, I know I said it a few times, but I really, really want to reinforce it. Please download the syllabus. It's free online. You don't even have to do like what they used to make you do, where you had to like act as if you were purchasing it. It was always free, but you have to go get a credit card number and or a debit card number and put it in to go ahead and do the transaction. You don't have to do that. You just go, you download it. Much simpler, much more. Uh, it makes more sense now, and it's a lot easier. So please just download this syllabus. Download any syllabi that you need for any of your subjects. Okay. Um, what do I have to tell you guys? So next week, because that's it for module 3, guys. That's all I could say. Anything else has to be in a class setting. And I'm still wondering if I'm gonna do a class. I would still have information about that definitely by next month in terms of if anyone's interested in getting actual information about CAPE communication studies. That's one of those subjects that no one finishes in time for the exam. And it's crazy because you do need to finish the subject. You do need to finish the content, and you need the content for your. I did have some students who were told by their teachers to prep their entire IA or the SBA for Cape Comms by the end of term 1. They hadn't even finished, and it was a very quite honestly, because they had to work on things that they just simply didn't have much information about. So I always feel the most empathetic for Cape Communication students because it's just an absolutely crazy, mind-boggling students and sorry subject. I'm a bit tired, guys. It's an absolutely crazy, mind-boggling subject, and it seems that a lot of teachers are not sure what to do with it. And I can understand, I can relate because it's a lot of new content. I am fortunate enough that all the information for the modules. I have actually had tertiary level information for these modules. I don't think every single teacher has had that, but no, actually they should. Actually, they should. Let me stop there. However, the question paper, especially for paper two, is often like, for me, first time I looked at that paper, I couldn't believe that those were questions for the content. But that's what CXC wants. So if you sign up to write the exam and that's what CXC wants, that's what you're gonna have to do. You gotta do what they want. You've got to work with their rubric. Another thing that I would strongly recommend, even if your teacher is not doing it, definitely try to figure out a topic for your IA. It's very important. Your IA topic must intersect a future goal as well as already studying right now at CSEC level. Please start figuring on a topic. Please start messaging your teacher. If you have to be an annoyance, sorry, teachers, you may not like that, but the IA is for the student. But if you have to really not be rude, not be disrespectful, not be insulting, okay, learners. But if you really need to get your teacher's attention, try to pick a subject as early as possible, a topic, sorry, as early as possible, because you know the IA is it's involved. Okay, it's a very involved piece of work. Um, I'm not a fan of it, but I've assisted students with it before, and we have created success. That's all I'm going to say. We have triumphed and we have created success. Okay, so but by next week you will also hear more information, like I said, not just on the Cape Communications class, but for Spanish orals. I'm going to do a class of Spanish orals. What I'm really doing right now is just trying to figure out how I would format it, especially in the case of orals. Orals is it's not going to be a large class, and we'd have a certain amount of work to cover. So I'm just thinking of the structure of the class. For CAPE, it's probably going to be a larger class for sure because a lot of it is informational. However, I would probably have an option to get feedback in terms of the questions because, again, knowing how the exam season runs, not everybody is going to have time to do a ton of lessons and do a ton of lessons where you have homework on top of schoolwork on top of IAs and SBAs. Madness. So sometimes just getting the information might be the best thing you could ever do for yourself so that you come to class, you hear the information, but you don't have the pressure of homework. For me, I do not want to pressure any student, any learner unnecessarily. That's just going to detract you from getting to your goal, which is that one or that A for the exam. We don't want any distractions. So you're going to look forward to that in terms of more information about those classes. I would also be sometime next month updating my website. There's some material that I can't just simply give to students. So, for example, for CAPE, I do have sample questions that I come up with. For English, I have sample questions. So, I really want to be able to put all of this information in one place. So, I'm just trying to figure that out as well. So, I don't randomly make a promise on one of these lives and then absolutely forget to post the information like I did last week. And I think maybe the week before that, I think I forgot it the week before that as well. My last thing to let you know is that for next week it's going to be episode 9. And episode 9, I'm going to tell you all about the ACE Excellent English Program, and in particular, the summary self study element about it. So actually, it's not just summary self study. It's actually going to cover all the major topics for English A, with right now focusing on paper 2, and it's entirely self-study. Isn't that an awesome thing? So I'm really going to be delving a bit further into that. Maybe you've seen the posts about those, but I'm going to go a little deeper into that particular program next week, and you can look forward to it. I know that the time is a little crazy. I had some shifts in my schedule and I wasn't sure what timing I could look at, but I think we may be looking at 11. Maybe I'll try to do a 10:30 next week, more than likely. So it's a little bit earlier, 10:30 Eastern time. And guys, that's it. All right. So this has been Coach Chanel. Again, thank you so much for dropping by into the live. If you have any questions or concerns about anything, please do leave a comment. I'll do my best to take a look at it and respond. And of course, as always, I'm going to leave you with these words. I am succeeding. I am successful. I know myself. I love myself. I know myself. I love myself. Take care, guys. Bye bye.